Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Neon and welcome back to another video. And in today's video, we'll be testing out the i5-1135G7 in Subnautica. Now, in case you guys don't know, this little CPU has integrated graphics on them. Specifically, it's the 11th gen Iris graphics. Apart from that, the CPU has 4 cores and 8 threads. It also has a max turbo frequency of 4.2 GHz. And on top of that, it has a max configurable TDP of 28 watts. Oh yeah, and before we get into the video, I just want to mention that this laptop has 16 gigabytes of RAM. Anyways, apart from that, let's go ahead and get right into the video. Alrighty, so moving on from that, the first thing that we're going to be testing out is 720p on the low presets. So here you guys can see all the settings. But yeah, let's go ahead and get straight into it. Alrighty, so we have freshly landed on this planet, and basically the game overall inside the life pod does not look that bad at all. Remember, we're running at 720p low settings at the moment. Now, the only thing that I can tell that is kind of, a little bit wonky, it's obviously the anti-aliasing. You can definitely see it on these little power cells right here. Looks pretty ugly. But yeah, overall, we're getting above 60 FPS inside the life pod, but I mean, it is inside the life pod, so go ahead and get out of here real quick. And so far,
The Aurora suffered orbital hull failure. Cause unknown. Zero human life signs detected.
honestly, so far, it is actually doing a pretty decent job. As you guys can see, we're getting well over 60 FPS here in the safe shallows at the moment. But like I said, given it is, pretty low resolution.
Copper is an essential component of all powered equipment. Your probability of survival has just increased to unlikely, but plausible.
Anyways, obviously it isn't looking fantastic. Now, the game is still looking pretty decent, honestly. But all things considered, yeah, the game looks pretty bad at the moment. But, we are at a pretty low resolution and all that. But yeah, as you guys can see, overall the game doesn't look that bad. Now, what I will say is that we are using about 8 gigabytes of RAM. So remember, keep in mind that if your laptop has around 8, we would be reaching the limit of, what that little laptop could do. So keep in mind that if you want to play this game, you'll be looking for a laptop that has more than 8 gigabytes, because obviously the computer also has background processes that it runs, and if the game doesn't get enough VRAM, then it starts to dip below 60, stutter, all that stuff. But yeah, honestly, there's not much more to say. As you guys can see, it's performing pretty well, so let's go ahead and move on to the medium settings. So yeah, let's do that. Alrighty, so as you guys can see, we have now put on the medium settings, and all in all, the game looks much better. But our performance is basically cut almost in half, but honestly, I think it's worth it. The game looks significantly better, especially with like the bloom and the rays that you can see on the water.
Oxygen.
Honestly, it is very much worth the performance cut, and this is what I would recommend to play on. So 720p medium settings. Now, one thing that you might have noticed if you have a keen eye is the RAM usage has gone up about half a gigabyte. So honestly, not that bad. But back to that point that I was making a little earlier. Also, look at this. You can also see like the color of the water change as you get into different biomes once you move on to the medium settings. But like I was saying, the RAM usage is overall increased a little bit. If you have this same laptop, but in the 8 gigabyte variant, which is actually super common, believe it or not, yeah, you might be in a bit of a pickle, honestly, because although Subnautica is not much of a RAM hog in terms of games, if you have anything open in the background, it's basically gonna make the game stutter, or it's gonna make your frames dip. But here we are in the kelp forest.
Life on this planet grows in unusually distinct and diverse ecological biomes. Further study recommended.
And honestly, here in the safe shallows for what we could do, the kelp forest is one of the most demanding biomes that we can be in because of the foliage and also all the kind of like the kelp just floating around, all the effects, all the lighting, all that stuff. And even then,
Oxygen.
it's still doing pretty decently. All in all, we were getting about 30 odd FPS, still not anything below 30, so that is really impressive coming from these integrated graphics. Being able to game on a laptop like this is pretty cool. But yeah, there's not much really else to say, but it's basically cutting your frames in half and making the game look significantly better. So I definitely think that this is worth it. So yeah, this is what the game looks like on medium. Anyways, now that we're done with this, hopefully we're done with this, we can go ahead and move on to the high settings, shall we? Okay, so we have now put the game on the high settings, and as you can see, basically everything is on high, including motion blur. Honestly, if I was you, I would turn that off, but you know, to each their own. But anyways, as you guys can see, we have put the game on the high settings. All in all, significantly, it doesn't look that much better. Uh, It's definitely noticeable once you get more and more close in with stuff. For example, the foliage down here, which is basically just a fancy word for the plants. Yeah, significantly better. The lighting also much better. If you look up, that just looks beautiful, doesn't it? But that's another thing. We're basically going from cutting our FPS in half when we go from the low to medium to basically doing that again when we go from medium to high.
Oxygen.
Given we are in the most demanding biome in the safe shallows at the moment, you know, all in all, it's not bad. But the thing is that I feel like for most people, anything under 30 FPS is just kind of unplayable. So we are getting about 25 FPS, and for most people, that's just kind of unplayable. We're going to be moving more towards the safe shallows over here, but it doesn't really change that much. You do definitely get about 30 FPS, but it still tends to dip below that. If we go into the life pod, obviously we're going to be getting, you know, normal FPS, but even then, as you can see, oh yeah, as you guys can see, the anti-aliasing is fixed for the power cells. I'm gonna put up an image before of what those look like. And yeah, you can see it now. Looks much better. Anyways, inside the life pod, you basically get like 1 or 2 FPS more. It's not that noticeable of a difference. One thing that you also might notice is that the RAM usage also went up even more. It went up an entire gigabyte. So this is a big no-no for those who have you know, computers with 8 gigabytes of RAM. But as you guys can see over here, it's honestly not performing that bad. It's definitely going to tend to dip a little bit below into the high 20s, but other than that, it's pretty decent, honestly. Yeah, as you can see, once you get closer to stuff like the foliage, like I said, fancy word for vegetation, and vegetation is a slightly less fancy word for plants. Yeah, you know, once it starts to really load in the details, yeah, it starts to lag a little bit. Like down here, we're like
Oxygen.
26 FPS, kind of crazy, honestly. Anyways, now that we're done with this, we're gonna move on to 1080p low. Alrighty, so as you guys can see, we are on 1080p and the graphics are set to low. And honestly, the game is still performing pretty well. We're getting about 40 FPS. As you can see, it's a very, very large downgrade from the high settings just now. But as you can see, it's still looking pretty good. We're back in the kelp forest, so this is pretty demanding. But, you know, it's honestly not that bad. As you guys can see, it does look pretty ugly for the most part in some parts of the game, but it's still very, very much playable. Um, Lighting basically down here is, oh yeah, and ambient occlusion. Don't ever forget the ambient occlusion. It looks very bad. It's basically non-existent down here, but given that we are on low, it's not bad. And as you can see, this is the most demanding part of Safe Shallows that we can access to, because we literally have nothing right now. We have a few pieces of scrap and some acid mushrooms, so we really can't do much with that. But yeah, it honestly isn't too terrible. If you want that extra kind of like crispiness and sharpness, it definitely is worth playing at this resolution. You're still going to be getting above 30 FPS basically all of the time. So if 30 FPS is kind of like a bare minimum for you, this might just be the way to play. Anyways, moving on from that, as you guys can see, we are on the medium settings at 1080p low. And yeah, this is kind of where the limit of what these little integrated graphics can do is shown. And although it is becoming nighttime, you know, the game still renders everything, you know, normally, I guess. I don't know if that makes anything more unfair for any given like you know, choice of settings or whatever. But yeah, as you guys can see, honestly, it isn't looking too bad. It is pretty dark here, but we are in the kelp forest, which is pretty demanding, honestly. And yeah, you can definitely see the game looks very nice. The lighting looks amazing. But yeah, no, it's under 25 or it's under like 25 FPS basically all the time. It struggles to get past 30, but yeah, we're basically getting the same performance as if we went on 720p high settings, which is actually kind of a interesting thing to think about. But yeah, even on the surface where, you know, you should be getting like 1 or 2 extra FPS, it's not really that good. But all in all, yeah, I mean, you could still play on it. I don't think most people would, because it is a little bit weird. But if you really, really want that crispiness and you really just want the game to look good, yeah, by all means, you could definitely play at 1080p medium settings, because the game looks great. But yeah, look at these gasopods. I know somebody that loves the gasopod. Yeah, they love the sounds that they make.
Oxygen.
Anyways, as you guys can see, basically playing at this resolution with these set of settings, it's not bad, but most people wouldn't play on this. Alrighty, so before ending the video, we're obviously going to try out the high preset on 1080p. And as you can see, the game looks very awesome. But what's more important is what's underwater, because obviously Subnautica is known for what's underwater. Anyways, enough of that dumb stuff. As you can see, the game is not performing very well at all. But, the game looks very, very nice. As you can see, all those rays of light reaching the sea floor. It looks really, really good. You can see the textures look amazing. And yeah, honestly, the game looks great, but like, why would you play like this? There's no point of playing like this. There really is no point. But we're going to go over here to the kelp forest to really make these integrated graphics suffer a little bit more. But yeah, honestly, it's completely unplayable. But you really could stretch it, and you really could say that it is playable, but for most, it really isn't. It's not worth the, incredibly low FPS to just get a really good looking game at 1080p. At this point, you might as well just get like an external graphics card or something. Like, it might be more worth it to play like that. But as you can see, now that we're down a little deeper into the kelp forest, yeah, we're getting about 13 FPS. And yeah, as you can see, if we try to move around, yeah, it's just kind of crazy. Let's go ahead and get back up to the surface before we drown. There we go. We made it right on back up, and back down we go. So as you can see, yeah, the game looks great, but the FPS are just far too low, to game on. Here's a stalker. Look at this little guy, just kind of floating around. Anyways, apart from that, there's really not much else to say. The game looks great, but there's no reason why you would play on this. If anything, I'd recommend just playing on 720p medium or 720p low if you want to get above 60 FPS. In the safe shallows, you do get a slightly better performance, but keep in mind that I literally only went to like 2 biomes in this entire benchmarking video. So depending on the biome you're in, you might be getting more FPS. For example, the dunes, yes, you're gonna absolutely get more FPS because it's basically just sand. It's literally just nothing there. You might see an occasional Reaper Leviathan, but it's basically just sand. But if you go deeper, like for example into the Lost River, yeah, the performance might be even worse than the kelp forest. If you go into these grassy plateaus, yeah, that's another thing. The performance might be even worse. You really just don't even know. But anyways, apart from that, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope that this video was useful to one of y'all. If you want to see more content like this, make sure to tell me in the comments. And if you want a specific game for me to check out, make sure to also tell me in the comments as well. Anyways, apart from that, I hope you enjoyed the video. Like I said, like and subscribe for more. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. So yeah, peace out, y'all.